Hey guys, so we have talked about Airbnbs on our show before, but now there is some news that maybe the Airbnb market, short-term rental market, is crashing. And so I know David has read an article about this, so let's hear kind of the facts, David, and then
Well, I would say most probably aren't aware of this unless you saw it in the news. But there was a tweet. There was a pretty prominent entrepreneur and real estate YouTuber named Nick Gurley, Gerli. You can look him up. He tweeted that Airbnb might collapse later in the year due to a wave of forced selling from Airbnb owners. And he identified, or he wrote this tweet, and the tweet went viral. I mean, there was an enormous number of comments and shares and all the above. And he pulled the data from alltherooms.com, and it showed that the hardest hit areas, among a few others, were Austin and Phoenix, with at least a 46% decline in revenue year over year. And he pointed out that there were 1 million Airbnb VRBO rentals compared to only 570,000 homes for sale. So he sort of said, hey, that could lead to home price downside if struggling Airbnb owners sell. And so he made this tweet. It went crazy. Everybody was posting it, and a lot of articles were written about how the Airbnb market is about to collapse because some of these markets are seeing a 46% decline in revenue year over year. And then you had some industry insiders come to the rescue and basically say, hey, look, I don't know where you're getting your data, but that's not true. In fact, the chief economist of AirDNA, which is AirDNA is basically a data aggregator for Airbnb and VRBO. And a lot of these short-term rental owners will use AirDNA to make decisions about what they will rent their properties out for and what markets they should be in and that type of stuff. But Jamie Lane, the chief economist for AirDNA, came out and said, hey, look, I don't know where you're getting your data, but we're showing that the average revenue decrease is not 40%. Yes, it's come down, but not by 40%. It's actually only about 4%, 3.6%, she said. So it's difficult to know who is actually, in the right here. There's a bunch of different arguing points of data out there. I guess more than likely it falls somewhere in the middle. It doesn't feel, at least I'm not in the short-term rental market, so I know some people that have short-term rentals, and I do believe that there's some turbulence going on in the market. They'll complain about rents being down and some of the hassles and challenges of utilizing Airbnb or VRBO, and some of the fees and frustrations that they have with how things are currently structured. But I don't get the sense that there's this systemic fallout that's going to happen in the short-term rental market. Also, Airbnb themselves basically just saying that more guests are traveling on their platform than ever before. And so you have this guy that's sort of in the YouTube space. He's probably trying to get clicks and excitement, and it worked. His tweet went viral. And then you've got the actual industry insiders that also have an agenda coming in to sort of give their take on the market. And my belief is that it's probably somewhere in between. Anyways, your thoughts, Jocelyn?
yeah, so I mean, I think there's a couple things to think about. Like, obviously, most people have a lot less cash than they have the past couple of years. If we are going into recession, that's likely to increase, and people are going to be less likely to be able to afford vacations. That being said, when you look at hotels, Airbnb, all the options for staying in for staying in places when you vacation, I feel like they're still fairly even. Like I feel like it used to be most people stayed in hotels. No one really knew about this other space. Then it became more popular, and now the Airbnb short-term rental space is increasing. But I think you still have a lot of people staying in hotels. And I mean, I see a definite possibility that the people staying in hotels or that there's going to be more people who start using Airbnb. So when Airbnb says that they have more users, they probably have more people signing up to use their platform. And so I wouldn't be super worried about the short-term rental market crashing because even though less people are going to be vacationing, I do think that it's a more attractive option than hotels. And I think I think a lot of people, especially the older population, don't quite understand it or know about it. But I think as time goes on, I think it will be like the predominant way to travel outside of like high-end hotels where you're going to have people who want to have that type of experience. And so that's one thing to think about is even though less people are vacationing, maybe we could get some of the people that are going to be staying in the hotels to be staying in the short-term rentals. I personally on our Airbnb, we haven't seen any decrease in revenue. And so I think it also depends on location. It depends on, are you in a vacation spot? Like if you have an Airbnb on the beach, I could see where you would have decreased revenue. Do you have an Airbnb where in a college town where a lot of parents come to stay to visit their kids, or it depends on what your Airbnb is used for, is another thing I would think about. But I mean, really there's a need for it. I don't see it going away or crashing. I see the hotel industry crashing. So but as far as short-term rentals, I think there's a demand for it, and I think it's um a a great solution to traveling and just helping our economy.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that that we've probably reached like a peak of transactions in the Airbnb space, just like we did in the general real estate market. And I think what's happened with the economy as a whole is actually probably healthy for the Airbnb market and the short-term rental market, because I think it'll sort of weed out those operators that aren't really serious about, operating a good short-term rental for prospective tenants. They're the ones that aren't going to have high scores. They're the ones that aren't providing a good experience, and they'll sort of fall by the wayside. And so there may be some fallout with those type of short-term rental owners. But as a whole, man, I know personally, just in my own travels with my family, we are often looking for an Airbnb option over a hotel option first. And sort of a hotel is almost like a fallback option if we can't find a good Airbnb in the area that we're looking in. So I know that we've enjoyed it, and from a personal perspective, I can't imagine that there's going to be a big decline in Airbnb income in the future. But we'll see how it
Yeah.
plays out. Maybe there'll be some more data that comes out, and we do have a crash coming up. Who knows?
Yeah. I feel like if one thing does crash, everything's going to crash. I am hopeful everything's going to be okay. That's it for today. For more daily investing tips and real estate secrets, don't forget to visit breakfreerealestate.com and make sure to like, subscribe, and share our podcast. We will see you tomorrow.